Hi. Okay, so before we get started, let's chat. How many people here are left-handed? Put up your hand. I think you have to put up your left hand if you're left-handed. So I am left-handed. That's interesting. That is below the general population. General population is 10%. Normally lefties are higher among geeks and nerds. So, interesting. Okay, tougher question. How many people have either a diagnosis for being, for example, ADHD, sensory processing? I can put up my hand, I'm on the spectrum. Asperger's for me, how many hands? Okay, again, smaller than the general population, smaller than what you'd expect in geeks and nerds who tend to attract, neurodivergent. Third question, this is the easy one. If you are at a family gathering and your family, was asked to point out the weird one, how many people would be pointed to? Put up your hand. Okay, now we're getting it. Okay, if you have not had a chance to put up your hand yet, we don't want anybody left out. How many people have not yet put up their hand? Not so typical anymore, eh? Not in the group with the weird ones. Here's the interesting number. If you are what we say as ADHD, sensory processing, anything like that, if you are the weird one, you are 20% of the general population. Let's flip that. What does that mean? That means that 80% of the population is what we've described as neurotypical. Notice what the definition of neurotypical is. You are 80% of the population. You are not in the 20%. You are the people about whom nothing interesting can be said. What's he like? Oh, he's, typical. So, for the people here who have had a diagnosis, who are on the spectrum, for the people here who have noticed that they are the weird one, is there a moment in your life that you can talk about where it became obvious to you that you were not thinking like everyone else thought? That this was, I can tell you for me, I've got a bunch of things all my life. I say things that are either obvious or obviously silly, and people are offended. And I'm going, but just true. And then, but the key thing, I was about 14 years old, and my mother, you'd have to meet my mother to appreciate this. You can't, she's dead. You have to be nice to me, I'm an orphan. So, and she gave me step-by-step instructions on how to greet people, right? So it's, I'm going to use you. Go up, hi, looked you in the eye. Isn't that great? But there was the tone of voice that mattered, because it was, everybody knows this, Peter. Plainly, I didn't. Nor do I remember at any point in school where they said, okay, now it's the meeting people. And I went, I do not think like my mother. And then I gradually noticed I didn't really think like everyone else I met. Well, except for the special 20%. Interesting use of the word special, right? Anybody else had a similar experience where they went, that's interesting. Okay, I'm coming in. What was it?
I'm not a man, and as a young child, I was brought in a special room to be tested for multiple things because it was that obvious that it was special, but I didn't know. I just realized none of the kids want to get tested.
You were the only one brought to the room.
Yes.
Oh.
Brought a specialist in just for me.
Whoa. I got sent to a class to get rid of my lisp. My mother said that was a complete waste of my time. My dad pointed out that my lisp did in fact go away. I was the only person getting this. But Mom pointed out my lisp went away when my 2 front teeth grew back in. So, anyone else had that moment where you went, oh, I'm not like everyone else? Okay, let me come back there. You had to sit at the back. Actually, that works out, doesn't it?
Well, I kind of had to learn as a child that I had to look in the eyes of the people when I'm talking to them, because I didn't like feel I need to do it. So I kind of had to learn it on purpose to do that.
Yep. That was, you know, I got a tip on that at the end, by the way. I remember in a class once, and I was giving a presentation, and at one point, I locked eyes with the instructor. I just went, and there we were. And I went, oh my gosh, I've screwed up. At the end, I got an A+ for audience integration because I'd locked eyes with the instructor. That was another one of those moments. Anybody else have a moment like that where you went, I'm not reacting like everyone else does? Oh, okay. Oh, good. Another one in the back row. The back row's the best.
Mine's a little dark, I'm sorry. I used to think that everyone around me was really depressed and they daydreamed all the time for years. And then I made friends and I realized that wasn't actually the case.
Well, isn't that the point of Buffy the Vampire Slayer? That, you know, vampires and werewolves and boyfriends who turned evil after they'd slept with you? Buffy the Vampire Slayer was high school, right? There you go. It's just a little bit more obvious. And then you discovered everybody else was faking it too. You know, that was the big moment. So here's the thing, if you're in that 80%, is that what we want to stop doing is saying, oh, well, this is the right way and this is the wrong way. What we're saying is, this is the typical way. And if we expand neurodivergent to, oh, well, I'm just the weird one in the family, all of a sudden it's a much larger group. But here's the thing about the 80%. It's the assumptions. Because, guess what? The whole world is set up to support the 80%. Why? Because it's typical. This is the way it works. If you have sensory processing issues, right? Why are the lights so bright? Why is the background noise so loud? Well, because that's what's acceptable for the typical. Doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. Just means this is what works for the 80% of the population about whom there is nothing interesting to say. Or to put it another way, it's not their fault. And you need to bear this in mind when you're working with neurotypicals. But as Salim pointed out in her talk yesterday, if we adjust the world for more than just the typical case, it actually pays off for everybody. So I need to take you through some training now. All right? I need a piece of information first. It's key, it's critical, it's essential. What is the price of carrots in Sofia? Sofia. Oh, come on, someone must go grocery shopping in this group. €1 per kilo. Okay, notice this is just a fact. So, it's like how rocks fall at 9.8 meters per second per second. It's just a fact. So I want you to practice saying that it's a fact voice. €1 per kilo. All right? So how much do carrots cost in Bulgaria? Let's broaden it. How much do carrots cost in Bulgaria? And you say, okay, you're still doing it like you're Irish and everything is really a question. It's lovely weather, isn't it? So, try. So, it's just a fact. Rocks fall 9.8 meters per second, and in Bulgaria, carrots cost You're rocking it. Okay. So, if you are neurotypical or if you are neurodivergent, what we are suggesting is, what I'm telling you is, why don't we just treat everything with the same assurance that we treat the neurotypical? I had a friend once who was black who said, I wish I could dance with the confidence of a middle-aged white man. Rocking it. That's what we do. And what we do is we say, plainly this isn't working. What's the issue here? I have some examples. First example, social cues. My understanding as an Asperger's kid and on the spectrum is that neurotypical people communicate with tone of voice, facial expressions, body language, all lost, just not there. There is an enormous amount of detail that people are confident they are communicating to me. Not happening. So, what do we do about this? Well, what we do about this is we say, listen, there's no way on God's green earth I am going to give you what you want unless I get some more details from you. And email is your friend. Because we all recognize that in email, there is no Friday. Which Friday? I'll send you an email. I got some questions. We'll flush out the details. Now, what would you rather work on? Would you rather work on a badly defined project? And by the way, can I tell you, given the number of flame wars, arguments, and misunderstandings that I have seen, I think there's far too much confidence placed in these social cues. Because I got to tell you, I don't think it works as well as the neurotypical people think it does. Wouldn't you rather work in a world where you could ask those questions and where you could get those details and where everything would be, this is what we're doing. Everything is known. So if you are neurotypical and someone says, I need more details, you say, great, send me an email with the questions. If you're neurodivergent, you say, no way on God's green earth you're going to get what you want unless I follow up on this. All right, another example. Multitasking. Okay, let's be clear about this, folks. Nobody actually multitasks, with the possible exception of mothers of small children and people teaching preschool. Nobody actually multitasks. And really, this is multitasking. If we're going to be honest, I am incapable of multitasking. I can work on one thing at a time. This is, again, Asperger's kind of thing. In fact, if I have one thing to do today, I spend all day waiting to do the one thing, and then once the one thing is done, well, the rest of the day's off. So what do you do about this? So you've got, at work, for example, you've got 5 priorities. Okay. What is the cost of carrots in Bulgaria? Okay, a bit random, but good tone. You had the tone down. So you say, listen, I can work on one thing at a time. What do you want me to do first? Or alternatively, what do you want to be done first? That's usually what they care about. And here's something you can do. You can ask that of your boss. You can ask that of the person handing out the assignments if you want. But really, if you're going to do this right, if you're going to do it in the way that's going to benefit everybody, what you do is you get all the stakeholders involved. And everybody gets a chance to say, the thing you are doing for me, this is this is not the priority. I can wait on this. It's not a problem. Wouldn't you rather live in a world where your voice is heard about anything that is being done for you, wouldn't you rather work in a world where you hear from all the people who are depending upon you and expecting shit from you? My wife told me not to say that. Anyway, then in a world where, why isn't this done yet? And now it's too late. Huh? Has anybody here, by the way, ever been told they were too sensitive and they were overreacting to stuff? Oh, yeah, there we go, there we go. Have you ever considered just punching that person in the face? There we go. Sensitive this, motherfucker. Oops. Still working. Often this is a symptom of what's called sensory processing disorder. And now, hate the word disorder. It is merely, you're in the 20%. You're not typical. Hate the word, I'm too sensitive. No, you're exactly as sensitive as you are. You know? It's like saying, I'm too tall. Or, well, you actually are too short. But never mind. The important thing here is the bigger point. And let's get rid of those words and say, oh, okay, I react more strongly to this than you do, than you probably do. Just how much do carrots cost? €1. There you go. You're rocking it. Nothing else. You'll come out of this session going, I know how much carrots cost in Bulgaria. Second most useless piece of information. So, what we have when you are prone to sensory overload, what you have is all this stuff crashing in, and you're overwhelmed. Has anybody here, this is a very personal question, feel free not to answer even if it's true. Has anybody here ever had a public meltdown? No? Oh, we have oh, good for you guys. I got to tell you, on Sunday, my wife and I were taking a walking tour of downtown, and we started off at the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral, and that as far as we got, because we all had to go outside, so I could throw up on the steps of the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. And then the nice sacristan came out with a bucket of water and sluiced it all away. And when we were back there the next day, you could still see. It's like, I leave my mark. So, for those of you who have in fact had a public meltdown, awkward. But that's all it is. Damn awkward. And in the same way that everybody you work with and everybody you interact with is passionately interested, especially people you work with, in you and being productive and you and being contributed, everybody who is around for that really doesn't want you to have to do that again. So what can you do about that? Well, if, for example, your SPD, and I hate the word disorder, but you need to put the word disorder in to get funding. If you don't have that magic word, D-I-S-O-R-D-E-R, you don't get funding. So you need that word in so that you can get the funding. If you have sensory, you say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. Carrots are €1 a kilo. No, sorry, wrong thing. Okay, don't say that. But say, I've got some noise-canceling headphones. I'm going to be wearing them during the day. How about this? How about if I check my email from 9:30 to 11:30, and that's it? And your boss will say, well, we need to get in touch. What if something's urgent? You say, if it's urgent, I'll keep an eye on the email, and if there's a urgency, I'll pick it up, I'll answer it. But other than that, I'm going to ignore it. And by the way, boss, if everything is marked urgent, nothing is urgent. So treat yourself with the same assumptions that neurotypical people make. That, yes, the world is set up for them, and it can be set up for you. And in fact, if you work better with noise-canceling headphones on, everybody's in favor of this. This is a zero-cost solution. I was said this to one person. It was like an episode of Big Bang Theory, and somebody said, well, won't people think I'm weird? I say, well, first off, you're in the 20% of the population. By definition, you are weird. And furthermore, quite frankly, everybody knows you're weird. That ship has sailed. You might as well lean into it. So, now, I have put, you'll notice, the onus on the neurotypical people. But neurotypical people, if you talk to them, and they say, when were you the most productive? And neurotypical people talk about when they were in the zone, when they were in the flow. And you say that, and you go, what was that like? And they said, well, I was just so focused on this thing, I didn't notice what was going on around me. Yes, that's it. And here are my noise-canceling headphones. There's a wonderful American comedian named Taylor Tomlinson. And she says, the wonderful thing about getting a diagnosis is it's more information about how to take care of yourself. And one of those things is, says, if you don't know how to swim, you wear arm floaties. We have arm floaties. We have noise-canceling headphones. The reason it's as bright as this is because it works for neurotypical people. It's actually probably too bright for most of them too, but what are you going to do about it? So, but I will admit that I have in fact been sort of putting the focus on what do the neurotypical people have to do. We have a responsibility as neurodivergent people, and this is a responsibility you can push on to neurodivergent people without feeling guilty about it in the least. And that is, we have to pay attention to who we're talking to. So I will get a client who gets in touch with me, and I send them a book. What they wanted to know was, so yes or no? No. So we have a responsibility to pay attention to our audience. And what do they actually need out of this? What do they actually want out of this? So now I send emails with, at the top, boldface, underlined, and it says the answer, and then no. And then background, bold-faced, underlined, and all the stuff I had to explain why it was no. And I'm sure no one reads that first paragraph, let alone the second, third, fourth, and fifth. But I had to tell somebody. But I can pay attention to the audience. I can give them what they need. And quite frankly, again, haven't you ever been in a situation where you wanted to shout, "Get to the point"? All those emails that get to you, "Hi, Peter, I hope you're well and everything is going for you." Yeah, crap. What do you want? I do not understand why you're doing that. You don't care if I'm doing well. You have something you need from me. Tell me what it is. So let's do more of that. Let's pay attention to what our audience actually needs. And what I need is for you to tell me what you want me to do. All right, I promised one more tip at the end. So if you are neurodivergent, I know we don't like doing this, but every once in a while, look the person you're talking to in the eye. This is a lot easier on Zoom, just stare at the camera. Doesn't actually look back. You didn't know that. So just every once in a while, look them in the eye. I'm told neurotypical people find that very reassuring, unless they're a bear, where apparently it's challenging. What can I tell you? It's confusing. Anyways, I wanted to start off this session saying Happy St. Demetrius Day and Dobar Dan. And I want to finish it up with, okay, Bagoda, help me out here. Bagodarya. Bagodarya. Thank you. And that is my contact information. Do you love laser pointers? They no longer work. And that's my contact information. Thank you for your time, your patience, your attention, and just treat yourself.